Hello and welcome back to my channel, and thanks for joining me on my channel update number 7 we're up to now. And I had promised that I would get back to you on the poll results. I had 2 polls out, one that I had launched 2 weeks ago, and it was a poll on what particular RPG on the channel you are most interested in. The results closed last night, Saturday the 5th of July. The final position, we had 90 votes, which is almost quite representative of the channel, about 10% of the channel's subscriber base. I was very pleased with that. We had a clear winner. We had AD&D First Edition, The Northern Marches. 35% was the result. That is a clear pole position. Second place, we had BX D&D, The Barony of Westmark, 28%, which is a very good showing from the new kid on the block. I think I'm up to episode 7 on BX. It's doing sterling work, getting the creative juices flowing with all the interactions that are going on. Third place, very, very well done. Good old classic traveller, good stalwart. The Shadow Nebula, 21%. So at least fifth of you thought that classic traveller was the one for you. It's a science fiction kind of slant to your interest. I'm really enjoying how that campaign's developing. It's really been quite gratifying how it's all kind of coming together, all that kind of spade work I was doing at the start. A bit like what a referee would do, really. You kind of generate your environment and your plot lines and whatever. But I've had the benefit of being able to do it on camera with you and share it with yourselves. And it's been a very satisfying creative process, as has all the others, because they've all been journeys, and I think the nice thing about them is they've all been quite individual expeditions into this RPG world. And finally, we've got RuneQuest Second Edition, the Great Veil, 16%. Nothing to be ashamed of, last place. But it's still getting embedded in the RuneQuest. Not a skeleton's leg has been severed yet, not a shattering of its bone. We are yet to do anything meaningful in those terms. In terms of combat, but we are on the brink of going to my version of the Great Vale's Apple Lane. I don't know what we'll call it, banana village or something. I don't know. We'll have to come up with a good name for it. We're going to be interacting with some rather nefarious characters, I'm sure, in those areas, and I'm sure that the swords will have to be whipped out, and we'll get a fumble table outs and critical hits, and maybe even impales and that sort of thing going. It just depends how clued up I am on the rules again in applying them. Also, I've thought of a way of RuneQuest we might have like a little neat solution. They're currently in the Adventurers Guild just now, and why not have some training done, and we could have maybe just a little sparring match between a couple of the characters. They can get their wooden swords out and start clubbing each other and see how they get on. It's that kind of thing. It is flexible enough that we can take little tangents. So overall, I think the way to read into this is that AD&D, I had a preconception that would be first. It has met my expectations. I was a bit surprised that it wasn't closer between the 3 others. But I suppose the fact that AD&D Dungeons and Dragons inspired, and BX is within, I suppose, the overall family. If you're into that kind of game, why not be also interested in the junior brother, I suppose. BX I suppose a bit, it's very slightly after AD&D, but it's within, I suppose, the same overall stable, that almost like the first generation of RPGs, with a different kind of tone and ethic and ethos. And I suppose if you're into that kind of ethos, you probably like both games. And then the Classic Traveller is what can one say about Classic Traveller? It's classic. It states what it's, on the tin. It's got classic. It is classic. And RuneQuest, I'm really as I said, I think I've said this a few times. This is the one I haven't actually GM'd before, and this is the one that I'm finding maybe the hardest to get my head around, because I've got to get into a kind of almost like I've got to go on a crash course of how a GM would think. I haven't got the natural touch that I have with the other ones, but that will develop, I am sure, with your cooperation. I've got a few commentators that are very good on keeping me right on RuneQuest lore, and particularly things to do with cults and languages and all that good stuff. So I'm relying on them to give me a bit of mentoring on this. So that was the first poll. That is closed now. We have a winner. Maybe it's confirmed some of your assumptions too. So that's good. Thank you very much for contributing to that. If you voted, I do appreciate that. Now the second one was a poll. Now this was really just a bit of a kind of I really just wanted to test the water and maybe read the room, and do all that good stuff that you should really be a bit more understanding of your audience, and maybe get into their skull, but I suppose within that, I'm probably still going to do what I would have done before. But I would if it had been a big swing one way or the other, I probably would have modified my overall timings. And I'm open to that, because I was even thinking, I remember speaking to my wife about this before, I said I'm quite open to getting my videos shorter. She said, well, some people, they don't have the time to invest. Maybe a half an hour might be better, because you can kind of fit that in. They don't have, they're not got the luxury of retirement like you, Brian, where you can just basically do this all day and churn out videos one after another, because you've got nothing else to do. They have lives. So I was reflective of that, and that's kind of why I asked this. So the question was a poll on my video runtime with the suggested sweet spot of between 45 and 50 minutes. So the final position after 81 votes, I had the different options. I agree, between 45 and 50 minutes is my sweet spot too. The second one, I want to get my life back. I prefer less, say 30 to 40 minutes, so that was less than that. I can't resist indulging your tangents. Make it 50 to 60 minutes plus. You must be crazy. That's you said, Brian, bring it on, more and more. We need more. And then finally, I have no real preference. Any video runtime is fine. So you'll see the results. The one where basically, I don't really care. Just anything you do, Brian's fine. I take that as a real positive. That's 39%. So that's good. And the status quo, just no real change. Although some of my later videos, like the one I did yesterday, was a BX one, and I just felt the time just go flying past. And then suddenly I looked up at my iPhone, and it said 55 minutes, and I thought, what? I thought, what is going on here? And then after all my wrap up and stuff like that, I was about an hour and 3 minutes. And I think that's one of the longest ones I've done. So this just happens. It just kind of creeps up on me sometimes. So I really need. I do have a clock that I have that kind of nestled near me, but I never ever look at it. I just don't. It's almost like I look at it at the start and think, right, okay, I'm going to look at the clock, and then once I start, I never look at it again. So we've got overall that's about 75% saying basically just we don't either care or just keep it the same. So to me that is as an overwhelming basically, yeah, you're doing fine, Brian. Bearing in mind that at 14%, and I do take into account, you know, there were few people saying, you know, I am stuck for time, maybe keep it to a shorter format, and 30 to 40 minutes. So maybe some of my outputs could be, and also I do have the option that I've got a number of different games on the go just now. Maybe some of my games and some of the later ones in my tranches, I could say, well, actually these are just half an hour slots that I do, and they're short and punchy, and maybe more of these 30 minutes ones. So instead of saying you're waiting maybe a week for a big 1 hour job or 50 minute video, I do a couple of half-hour things. You know, I've got that option to think about it. So I do take on board the 14% that said they want to get their life back. And then great, you're amazing, you guys. I can't resist indulging your chat tangents. Make it 50, you know, 50 to 60. Yeah, maybe you've fallen asleep while you were listening to it, and you just and you think, oh, this is a good way of giving me a nice long nap. And you know, make it longer. You know, I'm really enjoying this. You know, I think you've probably got your prayers answered, because as I said, a lot of my videos are actually going a bit over. If I do err, I tend to err in extending the video length. Okay, well, that's my 2 polls out of the way, and I do appreciate your indulgence of me. Hopefully I've got my poll instinct out of me for a wee while. I will not have to call on you to do that. It's a very kind of YouTube thing to do, but I think it's useful. It's useful. You can see who, you know, and I suppose it's quite an interest if you are signed up to a channel. You kind of think, well, who are all the other people that are watching this, and what are they kind of interested in? So you could be part of the cohort, which is AD&D, and you're going, yeah, we're on top. There's lots of us. Or you could be in the RuneQuest ones and saying, well, I'm a bit of a minority, but I guarantee to you, all you RuneQuest subscribers, I'm going to put as much effort into RuneQuest as I am into any of the other ones, and I have always stated that like RuneQuest is one of my favorite role-playing games. Unfortunately I have not GM'd it, but this is my chance. This is my chance to shine and get to top of the class, become a rune master in RuneQuest. So I do appreciate that 16% just as much as I appreciate any of the other percentages. Okay, one final thing. I did my duty. I had mentioned the fact that I was going to create all those guidelines and all those mechanics that I sometimes present. Probably I do present quite a lot, actually. I show on screen. But you just see kind of snippets of it, and you know, a few people are saying, oh, I've got to take screenshots and I've got to go back and copy it down, and Brian, when are you going to produce this? And I've said a few times, yeah, I'm gonna put them into format. I'm gonna put them on to YouTube. I've got to find out how to do this. I took a bit of time out. I created some copies that I could put into a Dropbox folder. I worked out from YouTube how to do this. It was after a bit of trial and error, it was very straightforward, and I just put them onto a link, onto a post as links, and hopefully you can get in to them and download them as Word documents, and then just do what you want to them. And it covers all 4. I've got the AD&D one, which is probably the most extensive, and it's got actual modifications to the rules system, and maybe not as many of the random tables, although there are a few, I suppose, if you think about it. And then my Traveller one, which is quite a comprehensive way. So say you wanted to sit down and do a solo campaign based on what I've been doing, you could probably just follow that format, you know, from the start to the end, and mirror that if you wanted to. So I suppose it has these documents. Someone said, "Oh, you should put them on to Drive-Through RPG." I am not no plans at all to market them or to be commercial. As far as I'm concerned, I don't even know where I've got these ideas from. I've plucked them out of my subconscious. I might pick them up from somewhere. I just don't know. It's got copyright on them. I just don't know. So it's free to all my subscribers. You can do whatever you want with them. You could publish them and make a million, but just remember me. Maybe give me a percentage when you are sitting on your yacht in the Caribbean. So I think I've done my duty. I have put these drafts on. When they update, because they are, as I said, they are living documents. What I plan to do is basically take those files off and put a version 2 on. So I've got them as version 1 just now. So as soon as you see version 2, you know that there's an updated form in that Dropbox, and you can just use the link. I think you can use the link even. Oh, maybe no, maybe I've got to link it actually. Yeah, I might have to do a version 2 post, but that's no big deal. Okay, so that's good. So that's the polls. That's the Dropbox links. Thank you very much for the polls, and thank me very much for. I'm going to thank myself very much for doing those documents. As I say, they weren't really too much hassle. I just had to reorder them slightly and make them a bit neater. Put things on one page and that type of stuff. It only took about half an hour really for all 4. And they're up. Good. So that's done. Only another couple of things I need to cover in this update. The tranche 2 plans. And remember, we had a playoff between BX D&D and BX D&D 1. They won quite convincingly, and BX D&D is now up and running. It's, as I said, it's up to its 7th episode on the channel. We're doing sterling stuff. I'm really enjoying the BX D&D. It has been I think it's been a really good addition to the channel. I feel it also has a pride of place that it's amongst what I call my core. So the core 4, these ones, these are the special ones that have pride of place, all 4 of them. It is definitely up there. So a young pretender, we have to have one. What better one to have than our old favourite? Well, maybe some of us is old favourite. Stormbringer, Ken St. Andre and Steve Perrin. Famous names in the industry. Chaosium. So another Chaosium product. Beautiful book. Look at that map. Yeah, I always like to have a look at the map. Yeah. Tanalorn, Bakshan, Nadsakor, oh dear, the Weeping Waste, the Isle of the Purple Towns, Melnibini. Yeah, it's all there. Everything, just waiting for us to adventure in it. And what I'm saying is that Stormbringer, Solo Adventures in the World of Elric, I am planning to launch that. Because it was 2nd place, it had 30%. Poor old Aftermath, 18%. But it's coming. It's Aftermath. This nuclear winter, the end of the world, desolation, despair. It is coming to this channel. Just a matter of time, and then you'll be thrown into a world of pain. But before that, you get this flash of colour. In this, I suppose, another doom-laden world. But my goodness, what a last hurrah is having the Young Kingdoms. It's a very vibrant last gasp of this world, despite all the doom and whatever. And hopefully we're going to have that same kind of experience. So I'm going to launch this by the end of August, and it's going to be our next Tranche 2 game. And I think of a video incidents of every 2 weeks. Will probably be the maximum that I can fit into the schedule. And that would probably be at tops. So it might be even 3 weeks or a month, just depending on what's happening. These games, unfortunately, if I had infinite time, I would be producing them at the same rate as the core. But because I have commitments to the other ones, they have priorities. So these ones have to be as passion projects, have to be kind of fitted in. And I want a more intimate and individual orientated stories in this campaign. So we will have a small band of 3 or 4 player characters, but with one we can identify with as the central character. So I think I'd already talked about this in one of my earlier updates, where I had this concept of having maybe first amongst equals, a character that we can identify with, and use them as the main player character, but be surrounded by a party made up of other player characters, but they are more the secondary actors in the story. I'm saying it's a bit comparable to the actual Elric and his associates in the novel. So say he has his companion Moonglum, or when Elric's with his I think it's his cousin Darjean. Is it Darjean? Lear or something? Yeah, so Elric's quite often with some other people in his party, and he's obviously the central figure. I'm positing something similar to that, where we have like a central Elric character that we can become quite invested in, and kind of see the world through their eyes. But he has colleagues and associates with him to help him out and do the things. He's not potentially telling them what to do because they're not subservient to him, but they are associates and colleagues of his. And I think that might be quite an interesting way to play the game. And this is just to recap what I was saying there. The rest are developed, but we see the world from this individual's perspective. So we do develop these other player characters, but we see it through the eyes of this character. So, Stormbringer, a game system similar to RuneQuest, because it's based on the basic role-playing system. So there's like the character sheet. I remember, in fact, I think I actually used Merrick Gren as one of our characters in our campaign. An assassin, yeah, because they had these amazing, really good character classes and subclasses, and there's features in this that are really quite novel and entertaining. Yeah, it's got skeletons and also additional rules for naval combat. It's quite. Some of it can be quite abstract, but we could have things like mass conflicts and naval conflicts and that. And some of the stuff that's covered, I always felt it was really quite comprehensive. And I was saying that I like to tinker a lot. I didn't really have to tinker maybe too much, and when I did, it really was into the kind of real detail. So the usual stuff was I was creating lots of other professions, and I was going into a bit more detail on professions. But yeah, so I'm not going to be tinkering too much with the rules this time. I'm going to be using the mantra of rules as written. I think this is sufficient first edition, and I'm really glad I got the first edition. I didn't sell out and get the third. I kept to that principle that it's the rules that I used back in the day that we do. Okay, so you might think, all right, well that's Brian finished. We can all enjoy the rest of our Sunday. I've got plenty of things to do. I don't want to hear Brian talking about any more. However, I have a bit of an announcement. Holmes Basic Newsflash. Woo, red alert. Yes, or probably blue alert. It's the Holmes Basic Newsflash. What does this mean, Brian? And pray tell, what are you on about? The Krakow Dragon, he is interested. Brian's channeled mug, prick up the ears. We're all sitting there waiting to hear what you've got to say. I am talking about a Holmes Basic Dungeons and Dragons solo campaign. Surely not, Brian. Have you the time? Are you out of your mind? You know, what have you been imbibing? You know, just stop it now. I had a thought after responding to a comment. So this is one of the subscribers made a comment where I gave a reply saying it would be fun. It'd be a fun surprise for the channel subscribers by playing Holmes using the old B1 to B3 modules. And it was a kind of throwaway line. But, you know, even when I was writing it, I was thinking about it. And I thought, well, that's quite a good idea. And, you know, as these things do, they started to crystallize. And this thought gained traction. And the end result has been that I've now ordered a copy from eBay of this, the Blue Book, because mine is, I think I've lost mine, because and it was a terrible state as well. And I plan to give it a spin on the channel. So, and I got this really, on the British eBay, there was this chap, he said he was clearing out his games collection, and he had this, it looked quite in very good condition. It's when in Britain, we had Games Workshop, and they sponsored the distribution of Dungeons and Dragons TSR products in Britain and Europe, and they produced their own versions of Dungeons and Dragons. So when you see the cover that I'm getting, it's the Games Workshop one. So it shows the TSR logo, and it also shows Games Workshop, and I think it's dated. Dated November 1978, and it's called the second edition. So I'll show you that when we get it. But it's in great condition. The chap had looked after it very well, and he's quite nostalgic about it. So I think it's had a good home. I'm going to give it an even better one, because I am going to use it to fulfill a couple of challenges I've laid down to myself. Challenge 1 is that I've given myself the challenge to make Holmes a viable solo campaign which will have a rich and interesting setting and provides an entertaining and highly enjoyable gaming experience. Wow, that is a stick with which to beat yourself, Brian, but get on with it. Let's see if you can do it. So that's my first challenge. And also I would say that this is a homage to Holmes, to Mr. Eric Holmes, or Dr. Eric Holmes, I believe he was. I think he passed away, unfortunately, in 2010, probably of a good age. As my first RPG experience, this was the first RPG I ever played. I think I've mentioned that a few times on the channel. And it's going to be a pure nostalgia trip and an indulgence for me. So I'm just going to have to ask your forgiveness and say, just please let me play this one on the channel. It's going to be front and center about imagination and believing there are endless possibilities. Now that is the thing, that's the core thing about Holmes, the one. It's not a heavy rule system, but it is all about infinite possibilities and just doing things. It's going to be played in an old school manner, and it's going to be all about exploration, discovery, mystery, danger, and flexibility, meaning in the playstyle. And talking about the playstyle, it's going to be a lighter tone and a dynamic playstyle. So hopefully that sounds quite tantalizing to you. We'll keep that little logo here. I also have challenge 2. To run this rule system with only a handful of solo tools and mechanics. Now, I think a central mantra of this is rulings over rules philosophy, and that's what I'm going to adopt for this. So there aren't too many rules anyhow in basic D&D, but there was a view that it was the rulings of the Dungeon Master that was important. And they could interpret things. They weren't slaves to the rules all the time. They could make judgments. Any situations, say you had a character jumping onto a table and doing a forward flip over the head of an orc, jumping to the other side and getting him in the back. You and your dungeon master would would talk to each other about it, and he would probably say, yeah, you could probably do that, and this is how you do it, and that would be a really, there's no rule to say you can do that, and that's where I'm going to bring in this rulings philosophy. So I'll fill in gaps with improvised rules and guidelines and generate my personalized extension to this game. So if I create new rules, they're all going to be my house rules. And I am giving myself permission to do that because that was the DIY ethos of basic D&D. It doesn't cover things like wilderness, or it doesn't cover things like towns. It's just all about dungeons. So, I've already got a gap. It only goes up to level 3. What am I going to do there? I'll come to that. And then I have a question. How easy is this? Because I thought, right, I'm going to put this to the test and I think, well, maybe this could be a bit of an onerous thing. I've got to generate this campaign. I've got to do this. I've got to crack characters, blah, 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 blah. But I found that I brainstormed an entire setting in an evening. I drew out a little map I had some ideas. I used components from the original scenario, the Tower of Xenopus, which was outside Port Town. So that's at the back of this book. And interestingly, when I was looking through the print, and if you can go back and look at this, there is a green dragon in that. So I must have subliminally absorbed that. I did not even remember that there was a green dragon in this. So I have subliminally taken that in. I think we did this randomly because we could have had the green dragon or the red dragon, and I think so I must have had something in my subconscious that said, it's got to be the green dragon, Brian. You've seen it before. So maybe this isn't original thought that's gone into my AD&D campaign. So I'm just going to admit that if you read the back of the Tower of Xenopus, outside Port Town, it mentions the green dragon in. So I can't copyright that as my own creation. And also I have my first Great Wilderness campaign, which was the first one we ever did, that I was a player in. And then I also was a DM for an AD&D campaign, and I think a lot of the spirit that I played that AD&D one was the first generation type thing, and I had a lot of ideas and things in that, so I brought that into the setting. I did that quite extensively, 1979 to 81. And then ideas from my revival of the game in the early noughties, where I was teaching some of my son's friends how to play it, and I had to come up with some ideas about the setting. And then I had, subsequent to that, a few more imaginative and pet concepts I wanted to add. And by the end of it, I had really quite a very satisfying setting for myself. And it really was ramped up on the fantasy side. It was really quite, not over the top exotic, but there were exotic elements in it. Lost civilizations and all sorts of very mysterious things going on. So I think that already got me quite invigorated, and I thought, well, that was quite a straightforward thing to do. And I don't feel any constraints with this Holmes system. I just feel I can do anything with it, and I think that's the ethos I want to bring across. And also I've been thinking of play styles under consideration, and I thought, well, I could do a comparison to my BX campaign and use the same interactive campaign style. So that's one option. Now, that's quite intensive because I have to do quite a bit of maybe drafting of the scenario and whatever. So I'm not sure if I want to do that, but that's an option. I've got this solo DM concept, the concept of having a design campaign setting and scenarios, but play this solo with me being the solo DM, and the characters and certain setting elements acting randomly to introduce a dynamic. That's quite a radical thing where it's actually the players and the some of the setting elements that are acting randomly, and I am the poor beleaguered GM is trying to herd cats and make them follow my framework, my arc. I'm not really sure on that either. The same kind of level of interest that I've got of BX model. And then a solo campaign using my own random tables, bespoke mechanics and tools with a unique random dungeon mechanic. and I'm thinking that's probably the one that I would go for. So that's 3 already. And then finally, the original conceit of just going through the modules B1 to B3 and doing playthroughs of them. Now, I've never really done that where I've just used an existing module and played it solo, and I've seen examples of it on YouTube, so I know it can be done. I'm just not really sure I really want to do that. I think I just want to do something that's unique. I might use those as sources of inspiration because they were with the Holmes in mind. Some of these things were developed. I might use some of the concepts in them, and I think they do have some specific rules and things that might be useful that I can cross-fertilize into my campaign. Again, I've got to think about it. So out of those 4, I would say that the solo campaign using my own random tables, bespoke mechanics, is the one. And that dovetails in with my challenge 2, where I've got to run this rules system with only a handful of solo tools and mechanics. And I have this rulings over rules philosophy. And then I've got maybe a bit like my Elric Stormbringer thing, where I focus on a single character with other PCs in the party as virtual NPCs. I don't know whether that's going to be something that's maybe could be one of the last gasps of the overall party. And again, with characters, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. And in fact, there's probably even going to be a lighter brush than I have with my BX one. I might just have one indulgence of overall personality that I can just apply to them, or I might just use alignment and say, right, that's how they behave. I haven't really decided on that yet, and that's the beauty of this Holmes thing. I can do whatever I want as and when. And then the restriction to level 3, well, that's what Holmes is. But there is a Holmes Companion that extends it up to 10. I think I might use the Holmes Companion. That seemed to be like a semi-official 4-page thing, sheet that you can download off the internet. It does have some specific house rules, which I quite like about with combat, because it's a 1d6 damage resolution for no matter what type of weapon, and this adds a bit of nuance into that, which I think I have to do that. I think it's just a bit too simplistic. But I think, again, with the combat, I'm going to try and bring in a lot of this this ad hoc type stuff and just make my own little rulings. And not, I think with my BX one, I've got a bit more constrained by kind of process, and also some of my options that I'm going to have based on what the archetypes say that the character would do in those situations. But for Holmes, I'm going to be a lot more basically just, as each situation develops, I'll maybe think of a handful of little tactical maneuvers that we could bring in to that specific thing, just to spice it up and see what happens. So, in conclusion, you think, thank goodness Brian's finished. What's he going to say? In conclusion, still a lot to consider and evaluate, and that's before I think about scheduling. Yeah. It's the old scheduling thing. It's a passion project at the start, and it's rather unfairly and undemocratically leapfrogged into 5th spot. Yeah, you could say that. It's a bit unfair. It's just kind of got in. But I suppose it was my first ever role-playing game. But we will assess after getting feedback. So I'll see what your feedback is. If there is an enthusiasm for a pure Holmes Basic D&D campaign on YouTube, it's maybe maybe put it down to a poll in the end. I might use this as a kind of a litmus test and see whether there is an interest for this, or am I just going down nostalgia lane for my own. I probably will just end up doing something, but maybe say everybody comes back and says, Brian, you're crazy, you're going mad. We're not really interested. That's all done and dusted. Holmes, BX great, AD&D fantastic, but come on, Holmes. Or you might all say, this is, my goodness, I've just been waiting for this. This is the light, on the road to Damascus. You've given us the light. It's going to be maybe or something in between that. I will take your feedback, and I will modify my offering based on what that is. However, I think at the core, I'll still have it as a passion project, and I'll probably be bringing it out, probably a very kind of limited Well, let's do a little special this month and have our homes. But let's see. Maybe you are thinking this is the best thing since sliced bread. I can't wait for you to bring this to the channel, Brian. Let's see what you think. Okay, well, I think I have, let's just have one last. And I think my copy is in the post, and I'm dying to show that off. And what I'll do is maybe do an introductory, although I've almost like done the introductory already on it, but maybe recap some of the decisions I've made on it. And I can give you an overview of the setting. Not go into too much detail, because I think maybe it can be a bit dull watching someone else explain their setting. Maybe I could do it like what your DM would do with you. He'd sit you down and say, right, this is where you are, and I'll give you just some very broad brush details about where the world that you're in and just how you've got where you are. I might do it in that format. Okay, well, once again, thank you very much for your contributions into the poll. Thanks for watching my channel update number 7, and thanks hopefully for indulging me in all these little passion projects that I keep getting distracted on. Yeah, okay, thanks very much for watching. Bye for now.